She didn't want the doctor to see Izabella's injuries. Andrea claims she never physically abused Izabella.
They called it a tragic accident. A little girl who simply stopped breathing. But when detectives walked into that house in Cold Springs, Nevada, they found something far more sinister. The mattress stained with urine, the locked closet barely big enough for a child to stand, and the Google searches left open on a phone. Signs your child is dying. Welcome to Crime Lab Report, where the darkest crimes meet the light of justice. I'm your host, and today we're diving into a case so horrifying it shook a quiet Nevada town to its core. The tragic story of Izabella Loving, a child failed by her parents, by the system, and by those who should have saved her. So sit back and prepare yourself, because what you're about to hear will haunt you long after this video ends. Izabella Loving was 5 years old when her body finally gave out. The official cause of death? Bacterial pneumonia. But the autopsy told the real story. Her tiny body bore the marks of months of systematic torture. 10 separate facial injuries. Heel fractures in her ribs. Bruises on top of bruises, in various stages of healing. The medical examiner found hemorrhages in her eyelids, proof of suffocation attempts. Her stomach contained traces of bleach, suggesting forced ingestion. Most chilling? Fingernail marks on the closet walls. Space at a child's height, as if she'd scratched her way out. This wasn't an accident. This was a slow, methodical execution. Her father, Nicholas Loving, was no stranger to violence. In 2013, he'd broken a 2-year-old boy's arm during a disciplinary session. Yet CPS classified Isabella's case as low risk after a single 15-minute home visit where Nicholas hid her injuries under a hoodie. The social worker's notes simply read, "No signs of maltreatment." Neighbors would later tell police they heard screaming coming from the house nearly every night. "We thought it was just roughhousing," one would say through tears. "We should have known." The abuse followed a brutal pattern. When Izabella misbehaved, Nicholas would drag her by her hoodie up the stairs. He'd lock her in a 5-by-5-foot closet for hours. Sometimes he'd kick her repeatedly with his steel-toe work boots 10, 20 times in a row. Her mother, Andrea, watched it all happen. Worse, she participated. In the final days, Izabella began coughing up blood. Any normal parent would have rushed to the ER. Andrea instead turned to Google. How to tell if ribs are broken, signs of internal bleeding, what happens when a child stops eating. The searches painted a damning timeline of neglect. On April 3rd, 2025, Izabella took her last breath. And her parents? They waited 5 full hours before calling 911. 5 hours to stage the scene, to wipe away evidence, to rehearse their lies. When paramedics arrived, they found Isabella's body carefully positioned on the living room couch, her hair combed, her face wiped clean. But no amount of cleanup could hide the truth. The detectives immediately knew something was wrong. The parents' stories didn't match. The injuries didn't fit their explanations of falling off a truck or rough housing with siblings. And then there was a closet. The tiny locked closet with no light, no bedding, and the unmistakable stench of urine. Nicholas initially tried to blame Izabella herself. She was difficult, he told police. She'd bang her head against the walls. But the evidence spoke louder than his excuses. The pattern of bruises showed defensive wounds, tiny arms raised to protect herself from blows. The heel fractures proved this wasn't a one-time loss of temper, but sustained torture over months. Andrea eventually cracked. She admitted to applying makeup to cover Isabella's bruises before family gatherings. She confessed to knowing about the beatings, but being too scared to stop them. Most damning of all, she revealed Nicholas had suggested burying Isabella's body in the backyard to avoid detection. The community erupted in outrage when the details became public.
And we are learning new details in the death of 5-year-old Izabella Loving. Reports from arresting officers detail the mother Andrea's version of what happened the morning she was discovered. and that includes some graphic details of physical abuse allegedly at the hands of Nicholas, the girl's father. And over the past 2 years, saying Nicholas was used to believe that Izabella was not his child. Andrea describes times she allegedly saw him kicking Izabella with steel-toe boots and cowboy boots. And she also says Nicholas would grab Izabella by the hair, slam her head against the wall, and that he would withhold food, force her to take cold showers, and that every night for several months leading up to her death, Izabella was locked in a small storage cabinet by either Nicholas or herself. Andrea claims that's where he wanted Izabella at all times. She also admitted to covering the little girl's bruises with makeup while they were in public, and that she had not taken her daughter to the doctor since 2022 because she didn't want the doctor to see Izabella's injuries. Andrea claims she never physically abused Izabella. However, investigators say they have evidence to the contrary. They also interviewed another child who detailed abuse to him at the hands of Nicholas. As we reported yesterday, Izabella's death was ruled a homicide. She died of bacterial pneumonia, but multiple blunt force injuries, malnutrition, dehydration, and medical neglect were also contributing factors. The report says officers found data on Andrea's cell phone showing her intentional involvement in the daily mistreatment of Izabella and that she deliberately failed to get the child care. They also reportedly have Ring camera footage detailing verbal abuse. Police also noting an apparent lack of emotion from both parents in the initial interviews. Both are now facing charges of child abuse causing substantial bodily harm. And Andrea Loving remains in the Washoe County Jail. She's due in court next Tuesday for a bail hearing. She waived her court appearance yesterday after being referred to the alternative public defender's office. There is a conflict of interest right now in this case because the public defender's office is representing Izabella's father.
Protesters now gather weekly outside the Washoe County CPS office, holding signs with Izabella's face. One reads, "Her blood is on your hands." The director resigned amid calls for a federal investigation. Vigils were held outside the courthouse. Today, Nicholas sits in jail on $10 million bail, facing charges that have put him away for life. Andrea cut a plea deal in exchange for her testimony. But no prison sentence can answer the haunting question, how many people failed Izabella before it was too late? But here's what keeps investigators up at night. Nicholas's phone revealed one final search, made just 30 minutes before calling 911. How long before a body becomes cold? Was it panic? Or proof this was never an accident at all? Izabella Loving should be in first grade now, learning to read, playing at recess. Instead, her name has become a rallying cry for change. Light a candle tonight. Say her name. And remember, evil thrives when good people do nothing.